Right, good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to a module that we labeled General Paper in Law or General Law Paper, however you look at it. The objective of that model, which we will be having every Thursday afternoon, is an attempt to get our students in good shape as you eventually finish the LLB and then you go and sit the law school entrance examination. So we are looking forward to having 100% success rate. That is to say that all our students who will sit should make it at their first attempt. That being the case, we know that on your own, you are doing a number of things to try and get yourself ready. But as an institution, we also think that we need to do something to help you. So in that respect, we will be putting together a lot of lessons, and the lessons are going to reflect at the moment the 6 examinable areas for purposes of the entrance examination. But and of course, I should also tell you that we will give you a series of tests which will reflect the approach and the emphasis of the entrance examination paper itself. So today being our first meeting, I will share some general important information from previous examination and examiner's perspective with you. And then when we are done, we will then take an area and do some work before we meet probably face-to-face or another online next week. Good. So at this stage, all of us know that in terms of examinable areas, it is expected that every student who has successfully gone through LLB and have been certified by the university as being ready to go to the law school must provide evidence that he or she has reasonable understanding of constitutional law, Ghana legal system and method, law of contracts, law of torts, land law, or what also known as the immovable property law, and then criminal law. The list has not changed. If it is updated, we will bring that to your attention. But as far as my information and where I sit, I know the independent examination committee or board has not yet changed the examinable areas. So let's work with this for the time being. Another point to note is that the structure of the paper for quite some time now, 2 parts. We have the MCQ, and the purpose of the MCQ is to test as many areas of the same subjects as possible. But of course, we will concede that some of the MCQ questions are not without problems in terms of sometimes the correctness of some of the questions itself, or sometimes the problem may relate to the answer options, that is the various choices which are provided for you to pick one. I mean, that is just a footnote remark because it's not something that you as a candidate or as a student can do anything about. No. And for that matter, for quite some time now, when I'm coaching students to go and write the law school entrance examination, the advice I give to them in order to deal with some of these problems, that is the problem of maybe the question itself, especially the multiple choice question itself, being somehow unclear, or the answers being somehow controversial. How do you manage that? You still have to get your mark. So therefore, what I usually propose is that we should do the so in the course of time, we will be, I think I have to meet all of you. Some of you are making notes. Let me meet all of you. I think I've muted all of you. If you want to talk now, you have to raise up your hand so that you'll be released and you can talk. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so when it comes to the MCQ, we have this approach that, okay, if you have like a question and you have options, you could use what they call the elimination method to knock out most of the most unlikely, correct answers. So that way you are able to deal with some of the problems which may be beyond your control as a student because you don't set the paper. But that is not something for you to worry about. If you understand the particular area of the law within the context of the same subjects, even where the question appears to be somewhat problematic, it will not be a very big problem. Yeah, somebody is asking the question, why that sometimes, if you look at some of the past questions which have come, we have some problems maybe in some of the questions or some of the answer options. Well, as I said, these are matters that we don't have to worry ourselves about. And I don't want to open a debate on that because it's not part of the job we are supposed to do. Our job is to hold ourselves in readiness so that we'll be able to get the score and move on. So let's concentrate on that. All right, thank you. Then again, apart from the multiple choice, of course, which is now 20 questions. Yeah, apart from the multiple choice, sometimes 20, other times 30, but be that is May, whether 20 or 30, it is just a component of what you are supposed to score in order to pass the paper. So what it means is that it is useful if you can pass, if you can pass that session also well. Good. Then we also have the session B, and the session B is the written component. And the written component is usually in one of two forms. you have either a typical essay question in the sense that the question does not require you to walk yourself through what is usually known as the hierarchy. That is, you stating the area of the law, identification of issues, stating the rules, applying them and all that. No, the essay question does not require that. But the question may also not be a direct essay question. It may be a problem-based question, in which case you approach it what you know best. What will be teaching you from first year LLB, that in every legal problem, you have to be very systematic in how you approach it. And being systematic means that who is Augustine Avomensa? Are you part-time or regular? Yeah, so so if it's a problem-based question, as I said, we have to be very structured. Now, I have talked to a number of people who have been involved with either they have some experience from the marking of the scripts or their review of it. And as we move on in the course of this preparation, I mean, between now and August or September, whatever the case may be in terms of the date for writing the entrance examination, is quite a long time, whether July, August, or September. So we will endeavor to be sharing with you some of the observations which have been made by examiners and reviewers of this law school entrance examination. But before we even get there, some of you, right? Some of you may be wondering if people, for example, got first class or second class upper or second class lower in the LLB, why is it that they are still not able to pass the law school entrance examination? Especially so if the subjects and topics being tested in the law school entrance examination are from some of the basic subjects which constitute the LLB. Ghana legal system, constitutional law, land law, criminal law, torts. If that is so, why do people still keep failing? I'm sure that some of you may genuinely have some of these questions on your mind, even as you attempt to revise on your own. Well, as I said, learning properly and answering question in examination properly are different things. And that is why we need to be reminding ourselves about some of these things. Of course, the multiple choice questions, some are approached poorly. Poorly in the sense that there are some students, when they read a question, they don't process it well in their mind. As soon as what they have read, for example, resonates in terms of something they have learned before, they will just jump to an answer without even attempting to test the correctness of the other options that he or she has actually rejected. And so that can let you pick the wrong answer. And that is why, even as you are revising on your own, and let me add that our students here who are still working towards your LLB, being the final year, the university has not conferred the degree on you yet. So you don't have the LLB. You must still earn it. And earning it means that you should still take all your modules and learning serious. Despite the fact that we also like you to also maybe apportion a bit of your time towards what we call like the continuous regular revision ahead of the law school entrance examination. But don't let the degree that you get also suffer. So that is just the initial advice in that respect. Yeah, so coming back to the poor approach to responding to the multiple choice question, as I said, you have, let's say, about the four answers or four options there. You read the question tag master, you probably get to section B. As soon as you get to section B, you are happy that that is the answer, and you leave it. But that could be a big problem, because multiple choice questions are set in order to sort of dribble or subject students or candidates to try and deceive them a little bit as part of testing if they really know what they're supposed to know. So you need to make sure that even if B is the correct answer, ask yourself, what about if you pick C? Will C be wrong, wrong, wrong? Or would D be wrong, wrong, wrong? Or A be wrong, wrong, wrong? When you have done such an exercise, that is, when you have endeavored to test the accuracy of the particular option, which you are convinced is the answer, it will be there and then that you have done a proper job. And that way, you are more likely to settle on the correct answer before it's even marked. But these things are not to be talked about. They are supposed to be practicalized. So as we move on, we have some questions that we'll be discussing in the course of time. But this is just introductory discussion regarding what we'll be doing in this particular exercise. A lot of you know that I used to do a general open revision for any student, but maybe this year I may just spend all the time with you and the recording will be made available if the other students would like to go and play it back. Okay, so the other reason which has been assigned for the failure by students who are similarly good students from the LLB program is linked to poor structure of essay answers. The view is held that a good number of students, when they are given the session B, they demonstrate some level of knowledge in terms of what the question is eliciting from them. However, they have a problem with presentation, how to present their ideas, how to structure their ideas or their response to the question. And that is also important, because what is happening is that when the examiners mark the essays, there are certain things that they look for. And at the end of reading it, they will put that thing down as the, maybe in the course of time, we will give you, if you like, some sample indications of what typical law examiners will be looking for. So if they, for example, they don't get proper like introduction in which the student will let us know his understanding of what the question is asking about and what he or she proposes to do in order to answer the question. A sort of you giving like a roadmap of what you actually be doing in that essay. That is not good enough, and it may not assist easy comprehension or understanding of what you have put together. So that's another thing that you should keep in mind. And of course, as I said, we will look at some of the things. So your introductions will be significantly inspiring. So those who keep failing, probably the bad structure, right, of answers, no conclusion, poor paragraphing and all that. And mind you, when you're going to write the law school entrance examination, it's not the same as you writing entrance examination to get admission to read LLB. Please, especially our non-SSS student or the part-timers, let's get this straight. When you want to get admission to the LLB program, we let you write entrance examination, right? And then when you finish the LLB and you want to go to the law school for the professional component, you also have to sit entrance examination. Now, in terms of standards, that is the level of quality, right, which is expected of you when you are doing the law school entrance examination, is certainly higher and different from what the universities require of you when you are doing the entrance examination for admission to the LLB program. And that is why nobody will be sympathetic to you if the language, the approach, how you are presenting your answers, for example, appear to be below standard. If I say below standard, that is below what is expected of someone who has gone through a successful LLB education and have been given the LLB degree. Your examiners will not show mercy in that respect, and they will not hesitate in actually giving very low mark, which ultimately will lead to your failure in the examination. So please, I'm saying this particular point with significant passion, so keep that in mind. The law school entrance examination, when they are being marked, being reviewed and all that, is not a time for sympathy to be shown that, oh, this is a student. No, you are LLB graduates. You've gone through LLB education. So if you make unpardonable grammatical error, for example, nobody will actually smile at you and say that, oh, give him a second chance and then you let him go. No, it doesn't work like that. Because mind you, we usually have more than 2,000 students, and in some years, 3,000 and so on, who are sitting that examination. And because of facilities and other resources, the Ghana School of Law will not be able to take, let's say, all 3,000, assuming you are 3,000 who wrote. Assuming you are 3,000 who wrote. So they are looking for the best among the 3,000 which wrote. And that is why if you make unpardonable grammatical errors, unpardonable in the sense that having gone through 3 years or 4 years of university education in law, certain type of mistakes are not supposed to be seen. when you are writing your responses. So please, let's keep that in mind. So maybe somebody will ask me, if I look at myself and the way I write and all that, I honestly concede that I have problem with how I construct sentences, right? Expression, and let me also add this, please. What is most annoying, right? As you can see, I'm not 100% very well, but I want to run this class. What is most annoying is that where a student of law has written an answer, and then in the answer, for example, you don't know proper capitalization of certain legal things, legal jargons or rubrics and so on. For example, somebody wants to refer to presidential, let's say, transition act, and then in writing the act, instead of making it a capital A, you make it like the small ACT. Please, those type of things actually annoys markers and examiners. So if we are talking about proper grammar, when it comes to law, legal English, we also have our own, even certain basic things. So please, let's pay attention to them. Let's know, for example, if you have to write an authority, if there has to be like proper capitalization of certain beginning letters, and so you should know how to do that. And then don't just do anything. Or let's say that you've written, let's say that a particular act, let's say like the Courts Act, right? Courts Act 1993, into brackets at 4, what is it? Is it 459? Yeah. So let's suppose that that's what you want to write. And then the act, you write, let's say, small ACT 459. That is not good. So let us keep that in mind. Of course, tenses are also a problem. So let us we just have to be conscious. And again, some of the mechanical inaccuracies in terms of how we write our essays. When we finish and we are able to go over, right, and pay attention to this, when we finish and we are able to go over what we have written, we are able to overcome most of these things which markers or examiners may use against us. Some of these errors, or as you read, of course, when you are writing under pressure, but when you finish and you're able to read over, you'll be able to cross certain T's and dot certain I's or do some other corrections. So let us keep that in mind. And the good thing for you is that you are still in school, or even, and you still have various exams and all that to do. And some of these things, they become part of you when you practice it than when you are just told. So what I'm telling you now, you should begin to practice it when you're doing your various work or when you're doing your various trials, as it were. Another reason for the mass failure, and also the, if you like, the frequent failure, or some people haven't done the last entry examination, the first word or second word or third word, or and some of them fourth and fifth word, is that they don't do adequate revision. Don't do adequate revision. On this point, I would like to advise you a good strategy to use so that to be able to adequately revise. And the advice is this, that some of you, all that you care about is that this person is organizing these classes here. Let me go and attend some and all that. I mean, there's nothing wrong in attending those classes, but they are not as important, right? Pay attention to that. Attending the various classes and all that, they are not as important as you having a structured approach to your revision, and then you go back to the books and read yourself. That is very important. So we do lectures or classes with you, but the classes that we do with you and the various tutorials that people do with you can never be a substitute for the primary obligation that you have to go to the material and read. So let's keep that in mind. In that regard, I will propose that since the subjects are 6 for the time being, every subject should be given equal attention. So what do you do? So now we are in the month of, basically, let's say the month of April is basically over. So let's suppose that we are working with the month of May, right? So we have May, June, July. So you can have, let's assume that the entrance examination will be written in August. Let's assume to be written in August. So you are using 3 months to plan your revision. So this revision planning I'm talking about your own personal learning. I'm not talking about the various classes and tutorials that I'm talking about your own personal learning. So for your own personal learning, what you could do is that since you have 6 subjects and we have 6 days, right? Maybe the 7th day, you may want to rest or do some other things. Devote, of course, now I know I'm talking to students who are still in the final year, learning to complete the LLB and then they write the entrance examination. If you happen to be in this class and you already have an LLB, your approach may be a bit different because you have a bit more time than those who are still in school. So for those who are still in school, which I'm certainly addressing now, the strategy for your personal learning with respect to the law school entrance examination, of course, don't forget you are fighting at 2 fronts. One front, you are finishing your LLB, and another front, you are getting ready to write the entrance examination. For the entrance examination, you devote, at the minimum, you can devote 1 day to one of the subjects. So you have a timetable. Let's say, Ghana legal system, you do it the Monday. Tuesday, you have contracts. Wednesday, you have criminal law. Thursday, you have tort. Friday, you have land law. And what have I left out? Constitutional law. I don't know if I've mentioned. Yeah, you do that on, let's say, Saturday. Now, for now, until you are completely done, you can organize yourself in such a way that you are going to use 2 hours, okay? So you are going to devote 2 hours out of the 24 hours in each of the days that you have towards your revision. Now, if you devote, and of course, at this stage, you need to be very disciplined regarding how you use your time, because you want to get your first class, you want to get your very good second class upper, or you want to get your very good second class lower. As you are in the final year now. And at the same time, you also want to be very ready so that you pass the law school entrance examination and pass it once and for all. In any case, don't forget, since they haven't changed the rules, the position is that if you get 50%, you pass. Good. So that should not be too much of a burden. So you try to sacrifice other things so that you are able to save 2 hours in working towards law school. And the 2 hours, as I said, in order to have like a focus, right? In order to have like a focused revision, you can decide to devote the 2 hours to just one subject a day. And then for the subjects too, how are you going to approach it? At this stage, don't listen to any rumor that, oh, last year they brought a question on constitutional interpretation where you can go, or who has a jurisdiction and so on. So that is not coming. So for example, you are learning constitutional law, you ignore that. No, at this stage, my advice is that you want to, if you take any subjects, you want to make sure that you have revised everything, right? So you take every subject, you take like the topics, and you make attempt to go through everything. But I also suggest that if you take any subject, you may have maybe some topics in which you don't understand very well, or in which you're not very confident about. So you could let your initial reading of that subject concentrate on those topics within that subject in which you don't understand very well or you're not very confident about. Now, when eventually you have exhausted those ones, and you will come back and then just revise everything. Now, this approach should be followed in all the 6 subjects. And in my view, if you follow that approach, you will be ready, and there will be no question which you not be able to answer. That is the best way to assure yourself that you are going to do this entrance examination once and for all. I hear rumors from some students that, oh, this particular institution or this particular tutorial center or whatever, oh, they got the questions or they discuss the questions. And for that matter, I'm going to just align myself there. And that is all that matters. No, my dear students, I will advise you against such attitude, against such approach. I rather want you to position yourself in such a way that whether you were lucky to prepare on a question which will be repeated or not, you will still be able to pass the examination once and for all. So many people have done that and it has worked. So if somebody has done that and it has worked, why do you want to base your life, you want to base your faith on lottery. Well, that approach is lottery in the sense that the so-called questions that the other people are saying that they have seen or whatever or they've received. If you go and those questions are not there, what it means is that that particular year you have signed up to fail, and you definitely not go to law school because you didn't take the your own personal revision serious, so that you understand things and you can do whatever comes. And that is why we are advising on that. Another reason why so many people were told do not do well has to do with the fear and anxiety. And what do you mean by that? There are some students, even including those of you who are yet to write your final LLB paper and all that, who are so obsessed about the law school entrance examination that they think that the law of tort, the tort of negligence, or the land law, registration of title, or the customary land law interest, which they know, when it gets into the context of law school entrance examination, then there's something different. And for that matter, even things that they know, because they are so overcome with fear and anxiety, that those things, for example, evaporate, and because they are panicking. You have to uproot fear and anxiety. And how do you do that? That's why I talk about adequate revision. If you have adequately revised, you mention a topic, any topic, defamation, tort, you understand it very well. You know all the various types of the elements, the defenses. We mentioned land law. For example, we mentioned co-ownership. You know the principle and all that. We mentioned constitutional law. Whether there is any problem regarding constitutional provision relating to deputy speakers when they are acting as the speaker, or they are serving, they are presiding. Like, assuming you have learned everything, or you've revised as we are advising you, you'll not be afraid of anything. Don't forget that to have made it to the stage of writing the law school entrance examination is acknowledgement of the fact that the various universities you are coming from, our university, KNUSC, is telling the whole world that you, Animedu Entry, or David, or Elsie, or who else, or your names are not there, yeah, that you have actually learned those LLB core courses. And that is why you think that you have to go to the law school. So if you are so much afraid that you're not sure whether you're going to make it or not and things like that, then you have disappointed us and you disappointed yourself. And because we don't want you to disappoint yourself and us, that is why we're saying that please revise everything. And revising everything, that's why I propose that at least devote 1 day to each subject. And because you are learning your regular courses, you can do 2 hours for that subject. And then as you finish school, then you have like the full day and all that. And the beginning of such revision, as I said, should focus on what they call the problem areas. And if I say problem areas, what am I talking about? Well, let me suggest that for each of you, and if I were you, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend about 30 minutes to 1 hour, okay? I will stop everything. I'll just take a jotter or a paper, and you are going to do what they call the personal audit. Personal audit in terms of your knowledge level and mastery of the say subjects. And you do this personal audit before you even start the revision that I've told you. So you sit down, you take constitutional law on your own. Just list the topics. Don't even look at the book. List like the usual topics, which you remember you were taught, okay? This exercise I'm proposing is a very useful one. Just close any book, just take exercise book or paper or anything, and then it's okay, say, okay, constitutional law. What are the topics which were taught? Don't go and open your constitutional law textbook or any material. You're just trying to recall. If you can talk, just even, you are going to list the topics, okay? Good. Now, when you finish listing the topics under constitutional law, then the ones that you have listed, ask yourself, these topics, in terms of my knowledge level, my confidence, right? In terms of knowing and understanding them, I'm going to rank my knowledge level for each of these topics. So I'm going to use 10 as to indicate that I am very confident, I have mastery, I can just wake up from bed. And if you ask me any question on that particular topic, if you are that level, then for that topic, you write, you score yourself 10 against that topic, okay? If you also think that, yeah, that topic, you know it, but it's just there. So I just give myself 2 out of 10. Another topic, maybe I give myself 4 out of 10. I'll give myself 1 out of, be honest, this kind of exercise requires sincerity, right? Frankness, honesty. You have to have candor to yourself, because you are not deceiving anybody. You will be deceiving your own self, and you are not going to also show it to anybody, just to guide your approach towards the revision. Or even if it will mean that that topic, you even have to give yourself 0 over 10. Don't be afraid. That is a relative. Good. Now, when you have finished that audit, which you did, just from your memory recall without actually looking in terms of like the topics, you can now take your constitutional law textbook or course outline or whatever, and then just oppose what you're able to do on your own with it and find out if there are still some topics in that course which have been omitted, and then you include them. And then, of course, you ask yourself, these ones have been omitted, how will I rate myself on each of them? Then you do that. Now, this exercise should be repeated for all the subjects. And when you do that, it will provide a very clear idea regarding where you are in terms of what you know under each of the topics in the respective subjects. So let us keep that in mind. Before I move on, I will pause if there are maybe some comment or question before I move on. As I said, today's meeting is the very introductory one. So our substantive discussion of particular revision of the subjects and the topics will be in our next meeting. Yes. If you want to talk, you raise up your hand and then I will release you. Otherwise, I'll continue. Okay, I haven't seen any hand up, so. Yeah, so we have talked about how to, okay. And I know that all of you have got, so in order not to jam your course platforms with law school entrance examination material, what I will do is that I'll put a dedicated platform link on your jurisprudence platform so that you join that link only for our KNUST students that we are preparing for the law school entrance examination. And there are some maybe materials or some other things that which are useful for the revision that we'll be doing. And just for the law school entrance examination, so that we don't cloud your other modules that you are doing with those particular things. Okay, so having said that, we have like a database, right? Pool of so many past questions out there. And the past questions, of course, you see a lot of the MCQs and all that. So we have said that if you want to do well and be in a position to answer MCQ questions, you must revise everything. And the advice I gave about how to revise everything will certainly mean that there'll be no barrier, right? There'll be no barrier to you in trying to make intelligent guesses. And what do I mean by that? Where you have studied the subject, you studied the topic. Let's say that you go to the exams, there's a question. You don't have 100% conviction regarding what the question actually requires. But what do? You need to pass the examination. So what are you going to do? Are you just going to jump that question and you never come back to it? No. So this is where there's what we call like the intelligent guessing, right? Intelligent guessing. And then and the emphasis is intelligence. Intelligent guessing presupposes that you are someone, you have learned the subject, let's say, very well, and so on. And for that matter, you'll be able to dwell on some remote knowledge or appreciation to help you to pick an answer which will happen to be correct, but you don't know that that is the correct one. And that's what we mean by the elimination method, right? So the elimination method will simply mean that you've read the question, there are about 5 or 4 answer options. You don't know whether it's A, B, C, or D. So what do? Okay, you read the question, then you come and read the answer. A, you ask yourself, some of the things you'll be able to actually you'll be able to eliminate them and say that no, this is not very much appropriate here at all. So what you end up doing is that if the options are 4, you have probably succeeded in taking 2 out, and you are left with 2. And then the other 2, as you keep looking at it again, you'll be able to settle on one. The one that you settle on, will be the correct one, but you, because you're not 100% sure, cannot really say that's correct one, but it will most likely coincide with the correct one. That is why someone may score a lot in the MCQ and will not do well in the rating component, because the person knows how to use the elimination method very well. But I would like you to do everything well so that you pass once and for all. Now, when you have targeted a particular answer, you need to validate the one that you have picked in terms of level of certainty, right? So you do that by going through again as it were. At this stage, this kind of explanation sounds abstract, but in our subsequent meetings, as we start discussing topics, and then at the end of the discussion, we try our hands on some of the questions. It will make more sense to you. But these skills are being discussed so that as you do your own personal revision to questions which are relevant to the topics that you are learning, you should also be trying your hands on them. Now, when you are dealing with the essay or essay type question, we also need to pay attention to the following. So first and foremost, read the question very well. You may need to have to read the question twice or thrice so that you understand what the question is inviting you to do. Because if you don't understand exactly what the question is inviting you to do and just do anything, you may end up missing the whole point. And that is why some will go to the exams and you come out and say that, oh, I wrote plenty. And yet you come and you fail. And we have instances, even from our own university here, we have some of our very good students who had to write the entrance examination about 2 or 3 times. Then you begin to wonder, what is wrong? Possibly, they go to the exams, they don't pay attention to the question well. If you are being a first class student and you don't read the question well, to understand exactly what is inviting you to do, you can get it wrong and you fail. 2, after reading the question and knowing exactly what the question is inviting you to do, quickly jot down your ideas, okay? Put down your ideas in respect of the particular question that you are very. What do you mean by that? By this, that is to say that once you've understood what the question is asking you to do, you've done some learning, you have a lot of things in your head. So quickly put down whatever comes to your mind regarding your understanding of what the question has asked you to do. Put them down until you've exhausted all those things which are coming up your mind. And when you are doing that, at this stage, you don't need any order. Like, you don't have to say that, no, I need to write this down first. And no, there's no need for coherence at this stage. You are just jotting down the ideas, okay? You are just jotting down the ideas. And then when you've done that, the next stage is for you to look at the ideas that you have jotted down and you rearrange them in a logically coherent order. Of course, certain points may need to be discussed first before others. So you go back to the ideas and then put them in a good sequential order. So that is something very important for you to pay attention to. Just 1 second. Right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so let's keep that in mind, that we have to arrange the points in a proper order. Now, we need to also remember that, in law, and this is another temptation which students often fail. If you look at the past questions, right? You look at some of the past questions, be it 2021 was pretty obvious in terms of it being straightforward. You look at the other 20, but I don't recall, but some of the past questions, the essay that you are invited to write, sometimes the essay is presented as a non-legal question, that is a non-law question, a question which you think that, oh, this one is just about what I think about something and so on and so forth. So you just start writing. But don't forget that you are a law student, and not just a law student who has finished LLB. And for that matter, and again, don't also forget that the exams you are writing is called law school entrance examination. So it is a law examination. Even if the question, the way that the question is presented appears to be something you think that you can just bring any common sense journalistic approach, no, you will still you make a mistake. What do I mean by that? That is to say that in this paper, insofar as you are going to write any composition or essay, authorities are important, right? Authorities are important. And then how to use authorities to support or buttress your essays. We must always remember the proper hierarchy of authorities. If what you are writing about, there's a relevant constitutional provision, then certainly you know that the constitution is always number one, so that will come first. Or you don't have constitutional provision, but you have some other statutory material like an act of parliament or something like that, then that will also come first. Before case law, you don't cite case law before you cite constitutional provision, or before you cite a relevant statute, no. Because case law is subordinate or subservient to constitution and also to the statutory material. So let's keep that in mind. Again, since you are writing an essay, when you have cited authority, it is a good practice to briefly expound or explain that authority and link it to your argument, okay? Don't just be lettering your essay with authorities where you don't do proper linkage with the particular point that you are discussing. Another point to note is that when you are writing your essay, don't forget proper paragraphing. Proper paragraphing. So you need to use appropriate linkages to connect points or ideas. Don't just write the ideas you have just in a nose form, just raw like that. No. At least from our secondary school or elementary school, we know that a paragraph contains a central piece of idea, isn't it? So every paragraph, at least, we have our main idea, which is developed in that paragraph. So the paragraph has one main idea, and the other sentence, all the sentences there explaining that idea, illustrating it, and then probably distinguishing that idea from some other, and so on. So the point is, a paragraph has one main idea, and that understanding should also influence how we actually compose our answers. So let's keep that in mind. Another point worth remembering is that you need to be discursive, even if the question is framed in a tempting way to be narrative or merely expository. That is to say that you are to avoid mere description, right? Don't just describe. You need to be discursive. And being discursive will mean that you are also applying your critical thinking skills, which you are supposed to have once you have gone through LLB training. And again, you don't finish writing your essay or essay type response without providing conclusion. And a lot of us, when we say conclusion, we are not sure what it means. Okay, the conclusion is supposed to play this role. You were asked a question all along from introduction up to date. Introduction, you told us your understanding of the question, what to be doing and all that, and use the rest of the body to develop the points. Now, as we come to the end of it, what are you saying? Are you saying that you've answered the question? Have you addressed what the question is asking us to do? So you summarize, if you like, so conclusion, you summarize like the main point and then link it to what the question asks you to do so that we know that you have responded to the question in one way or the other according to your own preference, informed by the analysis that you've done so far. Then finally, on essay, time management. Time management is key. And what do we mean by time management? You have to know that every examination, there's a duration. And if you are to answer 2 questions, and let's suppose that you decide to use, let's say, almost 70% of the time meant for 2 questions on one question, and you go and use 30% on the other question, you should know that the quality, right? The quality of the question that you use the lesser time will be affected. And for that matter, it may also affect the marks that you get. And that is why you could finish the exams, come and say that, oh, you're able to do the paper very well. And you know that you spent about 80% of your energies and the time on just one question. And then the other question, you did just about 20%. Certainly, you may get good marks in the one that is called the 80. But I know, talking to some people, that there are instances in which a student will be getting, let's say, 30 over let's say 50, right? Let's say the student will be getting, let's say, 30 over 50 in one paper, that one question. And that same student will be getting 5 over 50. That is disproportionate use of time and other resources. So time management is very important. Okay, the last bit, the session B, as I said, may be essay or problem-based. Now, if it is a problem-based, in law, especially in our common law world, the well-known approach in resolving problem-based questions is what we call the IRAC or the IPAC. And if you are answering a problem-based question in the entrance examination and you ignore it and you decide to do your own thing, you'll get some of the marks, but I can bet you that you will fail because your examiners will not take you serious, because you don't want to do what law students and for them at lawyers do when they are answering a problem-based question. So let us keep that in mind. And because we have all spent 3 years, 4 years learning law, this is something which does not need to be overemphasized. But since we are all trying to refresh our memories regarding what we know already, we will go through it briefly. So in the problem-based question, you must have introduction, and introduction, you do 2 main things. You map out the areas concerned, all right? And also generate the issues. But in this type of your examination, because you're doing what you call like a composite paper in the sense that you're doing 6 law subjects, okay? Unlike maybe your school scenario, if you are writing a paper in taxation, you know that it's just taxation paper you're writing, or if you're writing a paper in jurisprudence or company law and so on. But here, the law school entrance examination is just one paper. And so if you have like the problem base, it will not be wrong. And in fact, it will be more welcoming as far as I'm concerned. If, for example, you say that the problem scenario in the question or whatever, however you put it, falls under maybe negligence in the law of torts, right? Falls under negligence in the law of torts, as well as maybe enforcement of human rights or under constitutional law or something. So here, in terms of the area of law, what you will notice is that I've also added the particular subjects because the paper you are writing, we've not written at the top that this is a contract or this is commercial law or something like that. And that is why if you follow the history of the law school entrance examination, there was a point in time where there was a question and students did not know whether the question was contract or commercial law, like sale of goods. So there was that confusion. So if you look at it, for quite some time now, they don't bring commercial law as one of the subjects. Now, in order to minimize such confusion, when you are doing the area of law, it will also be helpful if you, for example, added the particular law subject to it. If you add it, it's good. If you don't add it, you'll not be penalized. Yeah, let me put it that way. Then, of course, as usual, we need to raise issues. You need to formulate issues. So the issues should all be outlined. Either you number them or use the first, second, third in the introduction. Now, when you are done with that, you take one issue at a time, and you can make that issue even like as a headline or subtopic. And you state all the principles or rules and corresponding authorities. And then you analyze the issue in the light of the principles and relevant facts to build your argument and draw a conclusion on that issue. So repeat this for all the issues, and then you draw one big conclusion, and then you are done. So I am sure that if you start putting some of these things in practice, even as you do your own private revision, in addition to the lessons that will be doing with you in other places, I think you should be very successful, and you should be able to pass this examination at one attempt. Okay, so I'll reserve just the next 3 minutes for any questions or comments. Because I have muted all of you, if you put up your hand, then I will release you for you to contribute. Is there any hand up? Okay, Ken.
Hello, Prof. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Please, an instance where you want to cite a case, but let's say you've either forgotten the name of the plaintiff or the defendant, but you have a fair idea of the case. Can you just cite one of them being either the defendant or the plaintiff, and would that be acceptable?
Oh, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. You can do that because if it's just the name, which is missing now in your head, but you actually know what the case is about, and then the principle and all that, you can do that. Okay, any other? All right, we'll be drawing the curtain down. Okay, so thank you very much, and then we'll meet again.